Welcome everybody. Some new faces I see. At the start of the season we put a lot of emphasis on planning for the worst and hoping for the best. This conservative approach was what we had hoped would help us exceed our solids per cow, lower our cost per kilo and grow more grass per hectare. I certainly don't want to be in a position to make excuses at this stage, but despite our best efforts across all fronts, the reality is even the conservative modelling that we've done exceeded the actual production we've seen so far. At the core of this has been the weather. So far this season we've received 614 mils compared to last year's 460 mils at the same point this season. This is 70% of last year's rainfall. Not only has it been more, but it has been consistent. Figures out of Fonterra show that the Waikato is currently down 7.5% for the season, and we're down 12.8% on a daily basis through October. So we're not the only ones in this boat. Some of this decline would be down to system changes on farm across the region, but would undoubtedly have been significantly influenced by the poor weather and not being able to utilise available feed right the way through spring. When reviewing our performance based on production alone, it doesn't paint a great picture. However, it's not all bad. There have been some significant improvements across our operational objectives, such as considerable improvements in pasture quality and so far pasture harvested per hectare. Lameness and cow condition has been improved from last year. There's been infrastructure improvements, management of young stock, a great team of staff, planning, monitoring and reporting, and community engagement with our recent public open day. We hope that by pulling all of this together and by learning from this spring we can improve further in the coming months and further forward in coming seasons. Milk production, as I'm sure you've all experienced, we've had a more than challenging spring this year. Currently we are down 11% for the month and 5% behind for season to date compared to last season. We do, however, have 7% less cows. As Mike said, we lost a further 5 hectares from our lease block, leading us to cull a further 30 cows during June to even out our stocking rate, down to the 2.8 cows per hectare. We are, however, ahead by 2% per cow compared to last year. Although we're slightly up per cow, we're considerably down about 12% compared to our budgeted figures that were set out at the start of the season using our Farm Max program. A lot of this once again comes down to the weather and the fact that utilisation of feed on hand has been limited right the way through to as low as 70% during some periods of spring. This once again shows the vulnerability of our system to the weather. Feed quality has also affected production with lower energy pasture due to high water content and low ME levels. Fluctuating growth rates have affected intakes, but also when silage could be shut up and when it could be taken off. Some paddocks were out of the round for up to 60 days and have been very, very slow to return into the grazing round. The weather has also made it almost impossible to mow ahead of the cows through most of September and October. So some quality has been lost here due to residuals in early spring not being met due to saturated pastures and ground. Though production is down, so is the cost of production. With the high growth rates through early September, we were able to not feed our planned palm kernel for September and October, and now some of November. This may mean we will get by with just this 160 tonne instead of a further 40 tonne which was budgeted to be used through the season. We can then use the remainder of that palm kernel on the contract to feed in a true deficit periods. By feeding here we may be able to maintain production and extend lactation and minimise any lost production further forward. We're under no illusion in regards to the challenges associated with maintaining our milk production. Much like in winter and spring, we're exposed just as much through summer. So far for the remainder of the season, we must focus on pasture quality and managing post-peak decline so that we can maintain levels of production for as long as possible. Elodie, who will be up next, will talk more on the how we go about that. All in all, a solid effort by the farm team through calving and mating, so a big thanks to Louis and Lani for their hard work and great attitude to deal with the challenges through spring and constant wet weather. On an animal health note, as I mentioned at September Open Day, both milk fever and mastitis occurrence were both much higher than we would have liked. Again, the weather certainly didn't help with this. With the constant rain, we struggled to get enough magnesium into the cows, and the ever increasing amount of mud didn't help with the cases of mastitis. This, coupled with not having blanket dry cowed or teat sealed the herd in the autumn as a cost saving measure, also a carryover effect of eczema from last summer. It does show the value of dry cow, but also the value of herd testing to prioritise those that need antibiotics and those that can be just teat sealed. We've had 36 cases to date, 8% of the herd, versus only 6% for the whole season last year. On a mating front, we have just finished 6 weeks of AI, 4 weeks of forward pack Friesian and crossbred from LIC, followed by 2 weeks of short gestation. Now we have the bulls running with the herd. Pre-mating heat detection showed 111 cows that had not cycled, so we used seeders on these, which is about 25% of the herd. Again, higher than what we would like to, but again, just the nature of the season, and without risking next year's calving pattern, economically it paid to not just leave these non-cyclers. We also use LIC's Y weight program on the remainder of the cows to further tighten up next year's calving. After 4 weeks of mating, we had 92% submission, but 30% returns. After 6 weeks, 98% return, 98% submission, and 36% returns. A higher return rate than we would have liked, but we're confident that the mating has gone well so far. So we'll see how scanning goes pre-Christmas. Monthly body condition scoring is carried out by Wade Bell from Dairy NZ and myself, and it is pleasing to see the cows are improving each month. We bottom out just below a 4 at the beginning of September, and now just over a 4 for October. On a positive health note, we have seen a vast improvement in cases of lameness within the herd. I've only had to lift 26 cows versus 51 at the same point last year. A lot of these have also been precautionary trim-ups as well. This can be partly put down to the improvements we've made to the races, but also the way that staff have managed the cows on the race and on the yard. The Wrangler crush that we purchased during the winter has made trimming of the feet both safer and easier, with the aim of trimming earlier and getting the cow back in the herd sooner. We've also been using copper sulphate foot bath twice a week for the past 6 weeks, and we have not seen the occurrence of foot rot like we did last year. We've discussed at management committee level, as Mike touched on, the effect of eczema last year, and it is likely that we'll be using zinc bolusing instead of drenching as our defence against eczema. Also alongside that will be water treatment as usual. Water treatment alone won't protect us, and due to the health and safety and cow flow concerns, we feel that bolusing everything will maximise our protection. Both the calves and the heifers have also had a tough spring with growth rates lower than desired. However, they have made up some ground over the past month since the weather improved. Bi-monthly weighing at the graziers will hopefully put further emphasis on recapturing lost ground in the tail groups. We're looking at weaning probably 2/3 of the calves next week as they hit their 100 kilo marks. Pasture and crops. We had an explosion of feed just before the last field day, which made managing quality difficult, as there was only a certain amount of the area that we could shut up for silage without compromising available feed down the track. The weather meant we couldn't get the silage off until late October. As I mentioned earlier, this resulted in some paddocks being out of the round for longer than we wanted. We managed to get approximately 90 tonne off the 36 hectares we cut. This will be invaluable next spring, as Mike also touched on. Pasture covers were managed very well over the winter and early spring, despite the atrocious weather. There's been minimal pugging and compaction damage. One area that does need to be improved is making a decision earlier to drop out silage ground and maintain quality. That critical point in early September, late August was missed, and I lost some ground there for sure. We're now topping ahead of the cows where suitable to maintain quality for the coming rounds. We're currently on a 20-day round, aiming to feed 18 kilos of grass per day. Where I see a deficit, I'm topping up with palm kernel between 2 and 3 kilos a day. Last week on average we only used half a kilo across the whole herd. With regular monitoring of the longest paddocks we'll be able to do this. As you can see on the FarmMax pasture cover graph, we use pre-mowing and silage areas to reset the residuals across the farm, where we weren't able to meet those 1,500 residuals through the wetter months. Positive story can be told for the regrassing program, with a lot of strong pastures out there and much lower weed burden than was seen at this time last year when I took over management. We've budgeted on growing 13.6 tonne of dry matter, that's 12.4 harvested, and are currently sitting at 5.3 harvested versus the 4.9 tonnes a hectare last year. We decided to move away from maize silage, as Mike touched on, after losing the area that we were going to grow it on the lease block. But also without the proper infrastructure, it's not economical to feed the maize with the low utilisation. We'll be buying in some additional silage, but not in the same quantity of maize, so this should ease some pressure on the financial budget. On the cropping front, we were able to cram a lot of work into a small window with some fine weather, with the silage coming off, chicory getting sown, effluent pond emptied, spring fert applied, and the last of the lime getting applied, all in a period of 5 days during October. It has all paid off now with a strong and even strike across the 19 hectares of chicory we've put in. I'd like to thank Emma and Kyle from Wrights and Seeds for your support in establishing the crop, helping to monitor its growth weekly. We're now waiting for the optimal 4-leaf stage to do a post-emergent weed spray to limit the weed burden going into canopy closure at the end of the month. And finally, nitrogen. Nitrogen use is still in line with budgeted 150 kilos of N per hectare. We're currently sitting at 90 kilos a hectare applied. Applications of N so far this season have gone on in the form of phased N during July, ammo during August and September, and sustained through the latter parts of October and the early parts of November. We also plan to apply a round of sustain in December to maintain covers and quality through summer, and then a round in April to boost covers going into winter. Thank you. Any questions?
So Tom, I wonder, just as a lead into what Elodie will sort of speak about, which I assume is would mirror a lot of what you'd be thinking anyway, maybe just a couple of minute overview of where to from now over the next couple of months here for us. What's the focus for you guys?
Certainly maintaining quality, as I touched on, and maintaining intakes. We'll stick on that 20-day round with the use of strategic palm kernel going forward, and then using the chicory as it comes into the round mid-December, just to lengthen that round out. If we see some growth after we apply the nitrogen in early December, then we can use that either to make a surplus, the silage, or using that to extend the round before the chicory comes in.
Final questions?
Yes, just questioning your decision. Did you do some more remodelling? You lost a bit of land, but given your cow condition, given your feed cover, certainly you would have had a little bit of pressure, but I'm just wondering whether it was the right decision to drop those 30 cows then when you're only a few weeks away from your growth, and I think it would have contributed a lot to help you with production and pasture control over the last 6 weeks and going forward.
We dropped those 30 cows back in June, and having had such a wet winter, we would have struggled to feed that extra 30 cows with the extra foot pressure on the paddocks. Certainly cow condition going into the winter was a little bit lighter, but they have responded since the weather has improved.
probably the other thing to consider there as well is, and we're all in that position now in terms of considering what impact those additional 30 cows will have on 5 less hectares, and it absolutely would have had an impact on the nitrogen leaching. So we need to maintain a farm system to ensure that environmentally we sort of maintain that nitrogen leaching position. So.
My question's a bit more practical one on your palm kernel. How do you maintain your flexibility in that you're not feeding what you contracted? Yeah, how does your contract work?
When I contracted the palm kernel in the autumn, I sat down with the rep from Farm Source and sort of talked about when I thought we would most need it, and we've been able to defer deliveries sort of up to 30 days, and it has fitted in very well with as and when we need it. Plus we've got a larger than adequate palm kernel bunker, so we've got 50 tonne storage there, so we can carry over sort of half a month's worth of feed there. And it's cheaper to have it on farm than pay the storage fee. After spending so much money on the race work and trying to prevent lameness, we decided not to use the raceway.
Just worth repeating the question. The question was basically, why do we not use more palm kernel during the sort of September, October, when obviously energy levels of the pastures and that were down, and could we have used them in the races?
We certainly did discuss it at the committee meeting, but the economics of it was we would have improved our milk, but with the amount of cover we had on farm, it wasn't economical to do so.
The other factor as well, and it's one of the aspects which is going to be quite a strong component in our modelling that we do for stage 2, is really our loss of production this year came down to our ability to feed high quality feed at those pinch periods when we had lots of pasture, but we've invested heavily in our pasture renovation, and given how saturated those soils were, putting a bin out in the middle of that paddock, we've already seen quite a few plugged up areas around those anyway. That's half of the reasoning around the maize as well. We had 200 tonnes of maize sitting on farm at the moment that we couldn't use over spring because utilisation of that probably would have been 50% at best. So that's where our sort of reviewing is at the moment, is looking at the farm system and how we can actually optimise that high quality feed at those pinch periods to make sure we can maintain that production, because that's kind of been probably the biggest challenge that Tom and team have been managing this year.
Like a feed pad, or what are the plans?
Doug's currently doing some modelling on change or possible farm systems moving forward. So we'll watch this space.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We can't just, what's the definition of craziness is doing the same thing over and over again. So like we've learnt a lot from this year, just so we learnt a lot from last year. Modelling at the moment is basically right across the scale of System 1 to System 5. Obviously, some of those system capital inputs are going to be a lot more, but we need to find a way to manage that better, and that will be one of the sort of drivers of that modelling work. So the idea basically is, at the moment we're running those farm system models through FarmMax. We'll be able to look at them financially at a high level through FarmMax, along with the farm system, using the information from FarmMax in terms of farm inputs, etc. We'll be able to update the overseer files for each of those different models. So then we'll be able to see where it sits from an environmental perspective. We'll then be working with all of the partners to look at how we can fine tune those farm systems. And then also looking at doing some capital monitoring around, capital modelling, in terms of return on investment. That's all sort of underway at the moment, and hopefully we'll be able to report back some of that stuff at our March focus day next year.
Yeah, I think just to be clear on that, Doug, we are still in stage 1 here. So stage 1 was a 3-year project. We're in year 2. So we are starting to look at that modelling now, and that's all destined to fit into stage 2. Which is basically in another 18 months' time, really. So, but that work is happening, and it'll be very exciting to see what pops out there.